Here's a glitch in your operating system that philosophers have been trying to patch for 3,000 years, and they've been wrong the whole time. You can believe two completely opposite things at the exact same moment, and not only does your mind not crash, it actually runs better. We often praise the opposable thumb or the discovery of fire, but I would argue that the wildest invention of the Homo sapiens was never physical. It was a software update. It was the invention of belief. We aren't talking about religion specifically here, or superstition. We are talking about the distinct biological ability to act as if something is true when there is zero evidence in the physical world to support it. You could imagine early humans standing at the edge of a dark forest. Logic would have done the math. Shadows mean predators. Predators mean death. Stay still. Logic would have kept them alive for a while, but belief might have whispered something else. Maybe there's food in there. Maybe there's shelter. Maybe I can make it. And maybe that whisper had nothing to do with whether it was true. Belief doesn't argue with reality. It experiments with it. Logic is a map. Belief is the decision to start walking even when the map is unfinished. Logic demands that north stays north. Logic would tell you that a map that changes is nothing but a lie. But what if that lie is the only thing that gets you home? Logic looks at the fuel gauge, sees it is on empty, and shuts off the engine to prevent damage. Belief smashes the gauge and drives another 50 miles on fumes. And for most of modern life, we're taught to confuse the two, or worse, to let one police the other. Logic is incredibly good at producing predictable results in the physical world. If you drop something, it falls. If you don't eat, you weaken. If you don't practice, you don't improve. Logic is the accountant of cause and effect. Think about your brain like a computer for a second. Every machine we've ever built runs on logic. Input A leads to output B. If this, then that. Clean. Predictable. Binary. And logic works. It got us to the moon. It built bridges that don't collapse. It created the phone in your pocket. Belief, on the other hand, doesn't balance books. It extends credit. Think of belief like wind in the sails. Wind doesn't care where you should go. It only cares that you've raised the sail. Logic can chart the route, but belief is what keeps you moving when the sea looks endless and the shore is invisible. Belief says, I don't know if this will work, but I'll act as if it might. And somewhere in the development of Homo sapiens in some cave, around some fire, inside some skull that looked just like yours, something happened that had never happened before in the history of this planet. A creature started running software that could hold contradictions, not as a bug, as a feature. We live in a world that worships the binary, true or false, 1 or 0. Logic loves the binary. Logic says you cannot be in New York and London at the same time, and physically logic is right. But the mind, this strange electric nebula inside your skull, is not physical. It is not bound by the laws of physics. It creates a space where you can run two conflicting operating systems simultaneously. This is the superpower, the ability to hold two completely contradictory truths in your hand, feel the weight of both, and instead of collapsing into confusion, you use the tension between them to propel yourself forward, like the positive and negative ends of a battery. Separately, they are just metal. Together, they create a current. What if belief is allowed to be inconsistent, because it's not there to describe reality, but to animate you within it? Imagine belief as a pair of shoes you put on, not a statement you defend. You don't argue whether running shoes are true. You ask whether they help you move. If believing life is short helps you stop waiting for permission, wear that belief. If believing life is long helps you endure discomfort and invest in habits, wear that one too. You don't owe the universe philosophical consistency. You owe yourself movement. The trouble starts when logic gets promoted to a role it was never hired for. Logic is a brilliant advisor, a terrible ruler. When logic starts interrogating belief, demanding proof, guarantees, certainty, belief shrinks. Not because it was wrong, but because it was never meant to survive a courtroom. Belief works more like a rehearsal, a dry run for a future that hasn't asked to exist yet. You imagine yourself braver than you are. You act slightly ahead of evidence. You borrow confidence from a version of yourself that might never fully arrive, but pulls you forward anyway. And maybe that imagined version doesn't need to be consistent. Maybe it only needs to be useful. The mind, left alone, seems capable of running multiple hypothetical futures at once, like parallel sketches, none finalized, all provisional. Each one offers energy, each one offers direction. You don't have to crown one king, you just have to not interrupt the process. Let's play with a hypothetical, the paralysis of action. You are standing on the edge of a risk. Maybe it's a career change, a text message you need to send, or a creative project. Logic tries to solve this. It creates a spreadsheet. It weighs the pros and cons, and usually it stalls. But look at what the believing mind can do. It can engage in a beautiful doublethink. In one hand, you hold the belief. Life is incredibly short. It's a flicker, a spark. You are a firefly in a thunderstorm. This belief tells you that embarrassment is expensive, that waiting is death. It tells you that since the curtain could fall tomorrow, you might as well ignore the fear and do what needs to be done right now. Fear is irrelevant because the timeline is microscopic. Simultaneously, in the very same heartbeat, you hold the contradictory belief. Life is incredibly long. Decades, centuries maybe, if technology allows. You are not a firefly, you are a glacier. This belief tells you that the embarrassment of today is just a data point in a 60-year chart. It tells you to play the long game. It tells you that overcoming this tiny fear today is like compound interest. It's a penny invested that will double and double until you are rich in character 40 years from now. Logic screams at you. It screams, it can't be both. You can't be a firefly and a glacier, but you can. You can let the short life belief provide the adrenaline to jump. You can let the long life belief provide the endurance to keep flying. You can be urgent and patient in the exact same second. This is a very cool ability of the mind, but there is a danger. The danger is that you will try to invite logic back into the room to audit your books. If you stop and try to reconcile these two beliefs, if you try to write a mathematical proof explaining how life is both a blink of an eye and an eternity, the structure collapses. You look down, you realize there is no bridge beneath your feet, and you fall. Logic is a useful servant for the physical world. Use it to pay your taxes, use it to build bridges, use it to mix concrete, but do not let it into the cockpit of your soul. Do not let it dictate your drive. Logic will always tell you the odds are bad. Logic will always tell you that you are tired. Logic will always cite the statistics of failure. Fear often disguises itself as reason. It says, be realistic. Wait until you're certain. But reality was never built by certainty. It was built by people who acted while holding incompatible stories about the future and letting both stories push them out the door. So maybe belief isn't about what you accept as true. Maybe it's about what you allow to move you. For thousands of years, thinkers, philosophers, theologians, scientists have tried to collapse this contradiction. They've said, pick one. Reconcile them. Find the synthesis. Logic demands coherence. And they were solving the wrong problem. They were debugging a feature. See, belief isn't logic. It was never meant to be. Logic is about what is true. Belief is about what moves you. And those are two completely different questions. A belief doesn't need to survive cross-examination. It doesn't need to hold up in court. It just needs to get you out of bed. It just needs to make you reach for the phone instead of the pillow. It just needs to whisper one more try when logic has already calculated the odds of failure. You can believe you're running out of time. You can believe you have all the time in the world. And if both of those beliefs point you toward the same door, toward action, toward courage, toward finally doing the thing, then why would you argue with them? Imagine there's a jury inside your head. Every time you face a decision, especially a scary one, this jury convenes. Now, most people think the jury needs to reach a unanimous verdict before you can act. All 12 jurors agreeing, yes, this is the right move, the logic checks out, the evidence is clear, but that's not how it works. In the courtroom of your mind, you don't need unanimity. You need movement. You need enough jurors voting yes to overcome the ones voting no. Some of your jurors vote based on logic, but some of them, the powerful ones, the ones who actually get you off the bench, vote based on belief. And belief doesn't care if it contradicts itself. Life is short? Yes, let's go. Life is long? Yes, let's go. Both jurors raise their hands, both point toward the exit, both shove you through the door. The verdict is the same. The reasoning doesn't matter. But here's where people trip themselves up. Here's where you might be tripping yourself up. You notice the contradiction. You notice that you're holding two beliefs that don't fit together, and something inside you, probably the part trained by school, by exams, by debates, something inside you says, wait, this doesn't make sense. You have to pick one. And so you start interrogating yourself. Do I really believe life is short? Then why am I planning for retirement? Do I really believe life is long? Then why am I terrified of wasting a single day? And the moment you start asking these questions, the moment you try to force logical coherence onto your belief system, the engine stalls, the rivers stop flowing, the jury goes silent. You've just debugged the feature that was keeping you moving. The fix is simpler than it sounds. Stop trying to fix it. Let both rivers flow. Let both co-pilots speak. Let the jury disagree, as long as they're all voting go. You don't owe your beliefs logical consistency. You owe them utility. Are they moving you? Are they pushing you toward the thing you know you need to do? Are they helping you override the fear, the hesitation, the paralysis? Then let them do their work. A hammer doesn't need to be beautiful. A ladder doesn't need to be comfortable. A belief doesn't need to be true. It just needs to be useful, and contradictory beliefs can be useful in the same moment, for the same purpose, toward the same destination. One more layer. Because this isn't just about the single moment of courage. It's about what that moment becomes. Every time you let belief override logic, every time you let both rivers push you forward, something happens. You build evidence, not logical evidence, experiential evidence. You prove to yourself that you can act despite contradiction, that you can move despite uncertainty, that the storm doesn't have to end for you to fly through it, and that evidence compounds like money in an account, like muscle from repetition, like trust in a relationship. Years from now, you'll have a portfolio of irrational courage, a history of times you should have frozen but didn't, a track record of contradictions that fueled you instead of confused you. And that portfolio becomes its own kind of belief, the belief that you are the kind of person who moves. So here's where I leave you. Your brain has a bug, a glitch in the code, a logical impossibility baked into the architecture. You can hold two opposing beliefs at the same time, and every philosopher, every engineer, every rationalist who ever tried to patch it, they miss the point. Because that bug is why you're still here. It's why your ancestors outran predators and crossed oceans and built things that shouldn't have worked. It's why you can stand at the edge of something terrifying and step forward anyway. Not because the math adds up, not because one belief won the argument, but because somewhere in the impossible, contradictory, beautifully broken machinery of your mind, both beliefs are pushing in the same direction, and that direction is forward. So the next time you catch yourself holding two truths that can't both be true, don't debug, don't reconcile, don't patch. Your brain has a bug, and it's your greatest feature.